true self.
Welcome to the Velvet Room. I wonder how many times it's been that we've seen each other like this. Apparently, we met for a purpose after all. Do you remember? The Velvet Room is inseparable from the heart of its invited guest. The shape of the room and its residents are selected by my master, based on the number of guests and the destiny. But my predecessor is gone from this place for a completely different reason. No one ordered her to leave. She left of her own will to accomplish her own ends. Such a thing cannot happen to the residents of the Velvet Room, so I wish to know the reasons behind it. My ultimate aim was to bring that foolish girl to her senses and return her here. To do so, I had to know why she left, and I felt that the key to understanding rested with you. But now, I'm even more confused. I can't say whether her choice in fact was foolish or not. All residents of the Velvet Room are destined to find themselves. It was true for her as well. Why did she suddenly give up on her quest? That was my greatest worry. But then again, maybe my premises were flawed. Maybe she found her answer and so left this place. In which case, my role is not to blindly bring her back. What was it that she gained? And who am I? What I may receive from you will most likely show me the answer to those questions. That is why fate did not bring a guest who only talks, but one who holds unmatched power. I would like to issue a request to you, not as my master's guest, but a personal request from me to you. Would you fight a match against me? I won't force you, of course. There's no reason for you to go that far. After all, if we were to clash, I might sever your thread of destiny. But encounters always bring change to both sides. If you emerge victorious, you will surely gain something as well. Please consider the offer carefully before making your decision. Should you opt to accept my request, bring this to me where I will wait. I look forward to seeing you again.
Welcome back to P4G. Welcome to a very special, action-packed episode of P4G. Now, did you think I forgot? For all you P4 veterans out there, did you think I messed up? That I could have possibly made such a big mistake? You are wrong. I framed the last episode the way I did on purpose, and I purposefully framed the beginning of this episode the way I did, with a very good reason. So, if you're confused about what's going on and why we started this episode with a weird cutscene from Margaret, allow me to explain. The reason we're playing this game in New Game Plus is really for that scene and what it rewards the player with. In New Game Plus, if you meet certain requirements, then at the very end of this game, upon entering the Velvet Room and seeing the shards of truth or whatever and having that final conversation, exiting, and then going down the street to confront Izanami, well, in New Game Plus, if you met the requirements, you can actually go back into the Velvet Room and get that cutscene that we saw at the beginning of this episode. And what this does is it allows you an optional boss fight against Margaret. Now, before we go any further, it's time for me to apologize, because I have lied. I lied in the very opening minutes of this LP, and I knew when those words left my mouth that they were a lie. I said that I would not talk at all about the plot of Persona 3. That was a lie. So here's the deal. This optional boss fight with Margaret, it's great. It's a lot of fun. It's a nice reward for players who have completed the game and done all the great things in New Game Plus. However, it's really meant for people who have played Persona 3 and know that game's story very, very well. So if you don't know Persona 3, as much as I love you and as much as I love that you're here with us, you're gonna get spoiled. We're talking about Persona 3 in this episode, so either you're sticking around because you already know P3 or you don't care. But hey, if you don't want to get spoiled on P3, totally fine. Exit out of this right now, go to the next part. We're not going to do anything in this episode as it regards to the end of the game, as it regards to pursuing Izanami. That's not happening in this episode. This episode is for Margaret, for optional things, and for talking about Persona 3. That's what this episode is. Alright? So are they gone? Is it just us now? Just the cool kids are here? Great. So, ooh, I love this scene. I love this fight. I love everything about the optional boss fight against Margaret. But first, there's something else we need to do. There's something that I've been ignoring this entire game. There's another optional fight that I have been running away from. Well, it just so happens that I've already done it and I have footage of it. I did it off camera, or not off camera, but away from live LPing, because it was going to take too long to do in a regular video. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the Reaper. Now, those of us who know Persona 3 know that the Reaper was a bit of an a-hole in that game. He was the optional boss, designed after the death avatar or whatever that Ryoji had in Persona 3, and he would wander around Tartarus if you were on floors too long, or if there was some kind of special floor you wandered into where he was just going to pursue you no matter what. Now, my P3 LP, I totally beat the Reaper. I kicked his ass. If you didn't see that, I totally did it. And I named the episode Don't Fear the Reaper after some kick-ass Blue Oyster Cult tunes. That was fucking awesome. The Reaper's in Persona 4. He works a little bit differently. He works differently in P4 than in P4G. In P4G, they changed it up a little bit. In the original P4, you could only encounter him in New Game Plus. But in this game, you can encounter him in any given dungeon. And the way he works is you have to open like 21 red chests in a row. And then you'll start hearing chains rattling. And it's like a 50-50 shot that the next chest you open will have the Reaper. It's really convoluted and complicated. But if you know the system well enough, you can sort of maneuver it to where you can kind of farm him out. So why fight the Reaper? He's a tough boss. He's level 85. And it can be a tough fight if you encounter him early in the game, because technically you can encounter him in the very first dungeon when you go to rescue Yukiko, and you don't want to do that. That's a bad time. And luckily the game tells you, you get a warning from your navigator if it's Teddy at the beginning of the game or Rise later in the game of, hey, you shouldn't open this box because you're probably going to get your shit wrecked. And it's up to the player whether or not to heed that. But late in the game, at this stage in the game, it's a fair fight. So I've already done that. I have pre-recorded footage of me fighting the Reaper. And the reason for doing it, I kind of circled around that point, is that you don't get a lot of experience. You get next to zero money. But what you get for defeating him out of the treasure chest that he was hiding in is a special weapon. Let's take a look at that weapon. I actually have the Blade of Tatsuka. Is that how it's pronounced? This is the ultimate sword for the main character. It's badass. 408 attack, 96 hit. So that's better than the thing that I bought at the very beginning of the game from Daidara. I have farmed out 4 Reapers so that I could equip my final team for the game, which is all the second year students, Yosuke, Chie, and Yukiko. So they also have their ultimate weapons. I fought him 4 times, but I only have footage of the very first fight. So we're going to do a little edit here, and here's the uncut full fight with me defeating the Reaper for the very first time, so you can get a look at that.
This thing. It feels really bad. You can win this. Just don't use light on it. One enemy to go. Keep it up.
Persona!
Senpai. Woo!
Counting on you! Damn, it's not going down!
So persistent.
Persona! Counting on you! Damn, it's not going down!
Come on! Persona! Turn to Scarlet! I couldn't do it.
Persona!
Senpai, keep it up! Just what I'd expect, Senpai. Woo!
Counting on you! Persona! That's you fixed!
Persona! Come on! Persona! Yikes, it's tough! With the pedals. So persistent. That's amazing, Yukiko-senpai. Keep it up. That's amazing, Yukiko-senpai. Keep it up.
Throw down! Persona! Damn, it's not going down.
Come on! Take this! The scented flowers waft. I can't defeat it.
Throw down! Persona! Someone else's turn.
Come on! Persona! Couldn't quite beat it. Fall with the pedals. So persistent.
Persona!
Just what I'd expect, Senpai. Woo!
Throw down!
Come on! Painted flowers walk. I couldn't do it.
Persona!
Senpai, quick, someone heal her. Yukiko-sen. Persona! Careful, guys. You're really low on health. Last one. Go for it. Come on! Persona! Turn to scarlet. Super sick. Persona! Just what I'd expect, Chie-senpai.
Counting on you! Persona! That should do it.
Alright, cool. So that's the Reaper boss fight. There's a little optional fight that you can do, and it's kind of fun. And I still have the difficulty turned down just a little bit. His damage output was on normal rather than greater, but it was a pretty fair fight with all the kick-ass skills our third tier personas have on the team. So up next is the Margaret boss fight, and she said she'd be waiting for us at Heaven's End. So let's go over there. I believe Rise is our path there. Okay, so this is just like any optional dungeon dive. Rather than getting to the very end of the dungeon, you have to play through the entire damn thing again and walk through all 10 floors or however many there are. So, Margaret boss fight. So, assuming that everyone still watching this at this point, heeded my advice and you are familiar with Persona 3, then you know that this is really a callback to P3 because that game's Velvet Room attendant, Elizabeth, had her own boss fight in all 3 iterations of P3, though I've never fought her in Persona 3 Portable, where she is said to be easier to my understanding. But in that game, in the original and P3 FES, The Journey, she's incredibly difficult. She is considered the hardest boss in the franchise, and I beat her too in my P3 LP. You can seek that out if you so choose at near the very end of that playlist. And Margaret is much the same way. She's considered the hardest boss in this game. She's harder than Izanami, but she's not quite as hard as Elizabeth was. She doesn't have as many rules. It's a fairer fight in some ways, but whatever. Now, if you've never seen this scene, you don't know what the Margaret fight's all about and how it ultimately ties in with P3. That will be explained, will make itself very apparent once the fight is over. We already kind of saw a little bit of that in that conversation inside the Velvet Room with her talking about that girl, her predecessor in the Velvet Room, obviously being her younger sister Elizabeth. But that kind of conversation continues after the fight. Now here's the thing. We obviously have the final battle in Persona 4 coming up right after this in the next part. And that'll be a challenge in and of itself. It would be in my best interest to raise the level of my final 3 party members as high as I can get them before challenging Izanami. So I'm going to approach this dungeon like I've approached all the dungeons in the past, which is I'm going to play the floors normally, I'm going to grind, and I'm going to defeat all the shadows. That's how I roll. But let's also keep in mind that this is my third trip to heaven. 3 trips. We already went through once and saved Nanako, and I fast forwarded through a lot of that to the song Heaven, which is a great song. Then we came back here to defeat the optional Shadow, and that time I put it to, I don't know, whichever fight song I picked for that one. I tried to alternate between Reach Out to the Truth and Time to Make History. So this time we're doing something special. I'm doing a little bit of a callback to the Persona 3 LP, which if you didn't watch, whatever. But in that game, in all the fast forwarding I did through Tartarus, I always set the fast forwards to Mass Destruction, that game's fight song, the best fight song in the franchise in my opinion. But eventually it got a little tiring, so around October or so, I changed it up, and I included a special little video of a live performance of Mass Destruction, so I'm bringing that back. So instead of doing, the whole song and dance of just fast forward battle footage and a soundtrack song, I instead give to you Shihoko Hirata, Soji Meguro, the Persona Live Band, performing Reach Out to the Truth live. I believe Persona Music Fest 2009 is what this is from. Whatever, it's Reach Out to the Truth live. It's fucking great. Enjoy that while I grind through this dungeon. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that. So here we are at Heaven's End, and it looks a little bit different than we may remember it. That's to set the stage. So let's talk about a little bit about this fight, and first of all, how you achieve it, how you actually meet the requirements that I alluded to. So in order to fight Margaret in Persona 4, you need to do a few things. For one, you need to be in New Game Plus. She's not available in the standard New Game. And then once in New Game Plus, you have to do two more things. You have to, one, complete the Empress social link, Margaret's social link of giving her those special required personas, those persona challenges she gives you, the fusion challenges, before apprehending Adachi. So finish the Empress social link sometime before catching Adachi in December. The second thing you need to do is defeat every optional shadow boss in the game, from Yukiko's castle all the way to this dungeon to heaven. So that's how many? Yukiko's castle, the sauna, the strip club, the game dungeon, the secret base, and this one. So that's 6 shadow bosses that you have to defeat, all before catching Adachi. Do all of that, and then on March 20th, you have the option of re-entering the Velvet Room after getting the Orb of Truth, or whatever the hell that thing is called, and getting that dialogue from Margaret for this challenge. Now, if you should know Persona 3, you should know the Elizabeth fight, but again, if you don't, then you can check that out on the channel. Elizabeth's fight in Persona 3 has tons of rules, tons and tons of rules that have become known as the rules of engagement by fans. And the first and foremost of those rules is that you cannot bring your fellow teammates of C's in with you to fight Elizabeth in that game. That rule does not apply to Persona 4. Margaret does not care if you bring investigation team members with you. However, I have chosen to leave my teammates behind for thematic purposes. I thought, hey, if this is all about callback to P3, we might as well make it a one-on-one fight. Now, luckily, as I said before, Margaret doesn't come with as many bullshit rules as Elizabeth does. Elizabeth will instant kill you if you have resistances, or not resistances, but the ability to repel or absorb skills that she's about to use. So if it's she's about to use Jack Frost and you have the ability to absorb ice on you right now, then she'll just kill you instantly instead, and because you broke the rules. Margaret doesn't care, so that instantly makes her a lot easier. Now that said, she does have the ability to kill you instantly. I think there's one item in the game, if you wear, she will just wipe you out because it's not fair. She doesn't want you to basically cheat. But 2, I believe every 25 turns or so, she will use an instant kill to wipe you out. Now luckily, if you've done your due diligence and worked on the social links like you should in a New Game Plus playthrough, Rise will protect you once. So even if I screw up and don't defeat her within those 25 turns, Rise will give me a get out of jail free card, or maybe perhaps 2, because Rise also has the ability to prevent a fatal attack, and she also has the ability to revive me once in the event that I fall. So really a long time ago I said Rise is going to come in very handy in a particular fight. I was referring to this one. So here's what's going to go on. I've actually been recording this in multiple sessions. I've already edited everything you saw through the fast forward. So we'll see how long this fight takes. No matter what, after the fight's over and after we get the really awesome dialogue that takes place afterwards that regards Persona 3, then I'll stop and we'll talk about it and analyze it a little bit before ending this episode, and then moving on to the true end game in the next episode. Now let's move on forward and get this fight started.
So you've come. I spoke to my master after you left.
It seems my predecessor also requested a duel from our last guest.
Though there's no way of knowing whether the boy took her up on the offer.
I called her foolish, but it seems we are kin indeed.
Are you sure you're ready? As the one who rules over power, I will fight with the utmost deference to you. Show me what lies beyond a mere exchange of words. I am charged with the heat and tension of battle. Now we begin. Don't disappoint me.
Huh? Wasn't she, What the? She's floating? Her power level is insane! Don't tell me you're going to fight her!
Persona! Persona!
Persona!
Withstand this! Just watch.
No way! She can use a persona too? Is she? Persona!
Just watch. Withstand this!
You can forget about using wind attacks.
Withstand this! Just watch.
This one's...
Persona!
Just watch.
Kozeon!
Withstand this!
Persona!
Just watch. Withstand this! Don't let me down. Don't let me down.
Persona! This one's...
Persona!
Withstand this! Just watch. Withstand this! Don't let me down. Don't let me down. Withstand this!
Come, Kozeon!
let me down. Withstand this! Just watch.
Come, Kozeon!
Just watch. Don't let me down. Withstand this! Just watch. I'll tell you now, discard any concern you may have for me. You will honor me by fighting as though you mean to kill. To hold back would be nothing short of insulting. Don't let me down. Just watch.
Persona!
Don't let me down. Just watch. Don't let me down. Withstand this! Don't let me down. Don't let me down.
Persona!
Persona!
Just watch. Don't let me down.
Persona!
Don't let me down.
Kozeon!
Withstand this!
Persona!
Don't let me down. Withstand this! Withstand this! Don't let me down. Don't let me down.
Kozeon!
Don't let me down.
This one's strong.
Persona!
How long has it been since I've felt this invigorated? My apologies, but I'm even more eager to defeat you now. Don't let me down. Just watch.
Persona!
Cozy on! Cozy on!
Persona! Persona!
Withstand this! Withstand this!
Persona!
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 Withstand this! Withstand this!
Electric.
Don't let me down. Just watch. Just watch. Don't let me down.
Persona!
Persona!
Just watch. Just watch. Don't let me down. Don't let me down.
Persona!
Withstand this! Protect me, Kozeon! Withstand this! Withstand this! Don't let me down! Withstand this! Just watch.
Persona!
Don't let me down. Protect me, Kozeon! Withstand this!
Persona!
Just watch. Just watch.
Persona!
Don't let me down. Withstand this!
Persona!
Withstand this! Protect me, Kozeon! Don't let me down. Kozeon!
Persona!
Don't let me down. Don't let me down.
Persona!
Don't let me down. Just watch.
Persona!
Don't let me down. Don't let me down.
Persona!
Just watch. Persona! Just watch. Withstand this! Senpai, are you okay? Withstand this! Get back up,
watch. Withstand this!
Come, Kozeon!
Just watch. Don't let me down. Just watch.
It's...
Don't let me down. Don't let me down.
Persona!
Persona!
Withstand this! Don't let me down. Just watch. Just watch. Just watch.
Persona!
Withstand this!
Persona!
How marvelous! Even Elizabeth never backed me this far into a corner. Now show me! Show me what lies beyond battles! Withstand this! Don't let me down!
Persona!
Just watch. Don't let me down. Don't let me down.
Kozeon!
Just watch.
Persona!
Just watch. Withstand this! Just watch. Withstand this!
Persona!
Don't let me down.
Come, Kozeon!
Don't let me down.
Persona!
Don't let me down. Withstand this!
Persona!
Don't let me down. Don't let me down.
Persona!
Persona!
Don't let me down.
Senpai, are you okay?
Just watch.
Senpai, you're low on health. Be careful.
No! While we were fighting, I recalled the fairy tale that girl told me once.
Before that girl left, she told me this.
A soul slumbers at the ends of the world, that of a young man who devoted himself to becoming a seal. That soul is risking itself to prevent mankind, who has lost the joy of living, from calling down ultimate destruction. She told me that she was going to save him from that fate. To tell the truth, I wondered what sort of nonsense she was speaking. But no, she was serious. She said if she couldn't do it alone, she would combine her powers with those who bonded with that soul to enact a miracle. Maybe all that she said was the truth. And that was her reason for leaving the Velvet Room. She must have come to realize what I now understand. You, a human, one against me, one who rules over power. You have shown me one's potential. Those who search for themselves are no one as long as the search continues. It isn't emptiness, but limitless potential. It means the seeker can choose to be anything he or she wishes.
That's why she made a choice.
I had planned to bring her back by force, but I won't interfere with her anymore. Her wish seems staggering to contemplate. But fortunately, the chains of time are loose for us residents. Even if there isn't time enough in a single era and it takes her eons, she will accomplish her mission.
This boy she took such a fancy to. I'm somewhat curious as to what kind of human he must be.
Your victory was truly amazing, and I must thank you. Of all the humans I've encountered until now, you shook my soul the most. This is proof of my reverence. Please accept it. With that much power and will, you can overcome any obstacle. Should you ever run up against your limits and feel you cannot overcome your boundaries, you'd be lying to yourself. Simply recall today's victory. There's no need to worry. Even if you should lose everything, your soul will not be isolated.
And if that does happen, just as she did for the other boy, I shall do for you.
Well then, I will return to the Velvet Room and take up my original duties. Let us meet again.
You need to watch your health, Senpai.
Thank you, Rise. Well, there you have it. That is the Margaret fight. So a couple things to address immediately before we get into discussing the importance of that fight and the scene that takes place afterwards. One, if you have a keen ear, yes, Margaret had two different voice actors during that scene. Now, I don't know why. I'm actually not sure if that's in the original P4 because I never fought Margaret in the PS2 version. But yeah, that's a thing that exist, and it's a little distracting. Speaking of distracting, just hit the little triangle there so Rise doesn't interrupt us anymore. Enough about Atlas USA's failings. Another thing to note is I will admit my cowardice, and that I changed up the difficulty to make that as easy as possible, given that I was choosing to make that a one-on-one fight. In fact, we'll just take this and turn it back to the normal settings that we had it on before. Oh, and I'd increase my experience 1 because we're at the end of the game and I was doing that optional grind. Okay, so let's talk about the importance of that scene. Now, you play through Persona 3, and perhaps you play through P3 The Answer as well. That's also on the channel. You can check that out too. And you start up P4, and the very first scene of the game is in the Velvet Room. Awakening there, Igor's there, and then Margaret's off to the right. Now, I imagine if you can recall back to the first time you played Persona 4, or perhaps this is your first time viewing P4, and had you played P3, you may think to yourself, well, where the hell's Elizabeth? What happened to her? Because this game's only set a year afterwards. P3's storyline ends March 31st. This one begins early April 2011. So yeah, P3 2009, 2010. This game 2011 to 2012. So what the hell happened to Elizabeth? Who's this Margaret chick? Well, as you complete Margaret's social link, you begin to understand, like, okay, they are related. They appear to be sisters. There's like subtle hints to her. Then you play through New Game Plus and you get to this part where you get the optional boss fight, and it becomes very clear that yes, they are sisters, and it becomes apparent why Elizabeth has left the Velvet Room and why she's not in this game. So you obviously should know the end of Persona 3. The main character gives his life. He becomes the seal that prevents mankind from calling upon ultimate destruction, from calling forth the maternal being known as Nyx, and bringing Armageddon upon itself in the form of the Fall. We now know that Elizabeth left the Velvet Room in an attempt to free him, to save the Persona 3 main character from the fate that he chose. Now, doing so is obviously not going to be easy. If you're familiar with P3 The Answer, then you know that the seal that locks Nyx away isn't necessarily sealing Nyx away, but rather sealing her away from the desires of mankind. We learn in the answer that mankind's apathy towards life, desire to see everything end, takes manifest in a separate being called Erebus, I believe. And at the end of the answer, the former members of SEAS defeat Erebus. But I believe it is then that Akihiko Sanada ponders that, wonders if Erebus has truly been defeated, and that in order to defeat Erebus, wouldn't mankind have to change as a whole? Wouldn't Erebus just come back? Well, as we will learn in the next game, in Persona 4 Arena, that hunch was correct, and that the threat still lingers towards the Great Seal, towards the soul of the main character of Persona 3, and that is why Elizabeth left the Velvet Room, so that she could find a power that would ultimately defeat Erebus once and for all and free him of his fate. Now, a big question is why? Why would she go to such lengths? The relationship between a Velvet Room attendant and his or her guest is very complicated, as we've learned in P3, as you learned in P3 Portable, as you learned in this game. And even Margaret herself says, and it's quite clear that she grows an attachment towards Yu Narukami. There's obviously the social link. There's the scene that we just got in the last episode where you can meet her in the shopping district and she kisses him. She says that if something were to happen to you, then I would do just as Elizabeth did. I would seek to save you. And that's sort of this weird mentor, I don't even know how to put it, relationship that the Velvet Room attendants develop with their guests. So it could just be that. It could be that Elizabeth is going to the lengths that she's going to, perhaps out of obligation, but it could in fact be more. It's never going to be expressly stated, at least thus far. through 2015's Persona releases. We're now in 2016, awaiting P5. More about that in a little bit. It's never really stated why Elizabeth is doing what she's doing, what her true motivation is, whether it's just obligation, whether it's due to friendship, or whether it's potentially due to romantic love. Now, another game that's in the Persona canon, one that won't be appearing in the 2016 Persona 5 hype train, unfortunately, is Persona Q Shadow of the Labyrinth for Nintendo 3DS. That game has a very interesting story in that it technically fits in the timelines and canons of both Persona 3 and Persona 4, starring both casts, but it involves some weird time-hopping, memory-forgetting BS so that it doesn't actually change the canons of either game. And once you play it, you kind of... that's not a spoiler, you kind of figure that out from the very beginning that something along those lines is going to take place. But what is interesting about PQ, even if it is just a fun little spin-off game, is that technically the relationships that are shown there, the interactions that the characters have with each other, can be viewed as canonical. And that's really interesting because if you play on the P4 side of that game, if you play as Yu Narukami, then you get to view the Persona 3 main character in a light that he's never been seen before, because due to the fact that he obviously doesn't survive after Persona 3, there is no separate side game that you can view his personality in a true canon way, the same way that we can view Yu's character after Persona 4. The closest that we ever came was seeing his former teammates reminisce about him in P3 The Answer. Well, PQ changed that, and that you could actually view him interact with his friends and get a little bit of an insight into his personality. I bring this up because one of the dungeons in PQ is a very jokey fan service dungeon in terms of pairing the main characters with other characters romantically, and it can be any character, not just the young ladies. But if you choose to see what that pairing would look like between the Persona 3 main character and Elizabeth, the conversation's kind of interesting, and one of the lines that Elizabeth drops in that conversation is hiding their relationship, quote-unquote, and that would refer to the fact that in P3, if you're familiar with that, there's the Elizabeth quest system and the Elizabeth date system where like 4 or 5 of her, however many quests in the game, are actual dates with her, and it culminates in the very late stages of the game with taking her back to the dorm room, and a very interesting scene taking place that we viewed in my P3 LP. Romance in Persona is usually very ambiguous, you know, it's up to the player to interpret how far things go when the lights go out, when the screen goes black. Did they hug? Did they kiss? Whatever. But this scene was an exception in that it was the most, I believe suggestive is the word, and that you have the option to either boldly accept or gently decline her requests to just straight up sleep with her, to have sex with her. Now, whether or not that event kind of happens or not, debatable, who really knows. But if we were to take Elizabeth's words in PQ and that scene with the main character, as well as if we take that as canon, that the dating quests in P3 were canon, then it may suggest that Elizabeth's motivations behind seeking to save the Persona 3 main character may be romantic. It's not definite, at least not yet, who knows, but it's something that could change in the future. And I say the future because obviously this is 2016 and we are on aboard the 2016 Persona 5 hype train. And whether or not this story regarding Elizabeth continues in P5 remains to be seen. I think, I feel like I can't speak for everyone, I can't speak for every Persona fan out there, but I'm a little skeptical that it will, given that its next continuation from P4 was in Arena, and to a lesser extent, Arena Ultimax. And it's really unclear whether it even needs to continue, but it may. Now, I haven't made this video yet. I'm planning a P5 video, which will hopefully be out by the time this airs. But to talk a little bit about P5, and I will tie it in with this whole Elizabeth story, is P5's theming, well, in respect to P3 and P4, P3 being about death, P4 being about the truth, P5's theming may be about change. At first, when previews started to come out, everyone assumed it was about freedom. But the more this game gets hyped up and the more trailers come out and the more interviews I see from Gatsura Hashino, makes me think that this game is going to be about change, about societal change, which is why it's set in a real-life city this time. And if you've heard the rough cut lyrics of the opening to P5 sung by the new vocalist Lynn, that is too on the channel under the P5 Hype Train playlist, then the word change is prominently featured in the P5 opening. So how does this tie into Elizabeth and everything? Well, if we remember what Akihiko said at the end of the answer about, in order to truly defeat Erebus, humankind would have to change. Society would have to change whole scale from a very fundamental level so that mankind would no longer be apathetic towards the idea of living life, and perhaps the threat of Erebus breaking the seal and the fall ever coming to fruition again would be ended forever, completely. There would be no threat of the fall. Now, this is all just speculation, but it makes me wonder, or at least I noticed the coincidence that, like, it's kind of weird that the Persona story world has set up this really extended backstory as it regards to Elizabeth and the P3 main character, and then all of a sudden here comes P5 talking about changing society. It's a little suspicious. Now, of course, again, just speculation. I could be way wrong, and nothing about anything from P3 or P4 could even be mentioned in P5. Who knows? That all remains to be seen. And of course, like everyone, I hope to find out in the very near future. One other thing to note as it pertains to the Velvet Room attendants and P5 is we already know from the Persona 5's promotional material that once again the Velvet Room's duties have changed hands. Margaret is not there, neither is Theodore there, the alternate attendant in Persona 3 who debuts in Persona 3 Portable and is later confirmed as canon via Persona 4 Arena Ultimax and Persona Q. So neither Elizabeth, Theodore, or Margaret are there. Two new Velvet Room attendants will be in charge in P5, and they are Caroline and Justine, the referred to by the fans as the Velvet Twins, two young girls, very young, like Nanako's stature even. Not a lot's known about them yet, but it kind of brings up the dilemma that I already talked about when P4 starts, when you're playing it and you're like, well, who's Margaret? Where the hell's Elizabeth? Well, P5's doing it again. Who's Caroline and Justine? Are they the youngest sisters of these other Velvet Room siblings? Where the hell is Margaret? What happened to Margaret since P4? Again, the mystery continues, and it continues even further until we get to play the game, because we don't know what year P5 is set. This game from 2011 to 2012 with its subsequent sequel spin-offs happening in the following months after this game ends. We don't know when P5 is. It could be a year later, it could be 5 years later, it could be 10 years later. But once again, the mystery of the Velvet Room attendance will continue. I hope you enjoyed sitting around and listening to me talk about the Persona story world and how this game ultimately did tie into P3 and the very intriguing storyline regarding the main character and Elizabeth that continues to this day. But that's it for this one. I'm not quite sure what the time is. We've perhaps gone way over. I have no idea. But in the next one, we will be getting to the final battle. We will have a traditional dungeon to go through. Very traditional, in fact. It's actually a bit more streamlined than the last two we've done. And then at the end of that will, of course, be the battle against Izanami. Now, if you know P4, this might be a concern to you, but don't worry. The second that you go to Junes and you enter the TV world, all these cutscenes happen regarding finding Izanami, yada yada yada. So technically that's already happened in the game, but don't worry, I have that footage saved up. So we'll start the next episode like as if this episode never really happened. but we will we'll take a look at some of the stuff we get for beating Margaret, so that all those babies that left and didn't want to get spoiled on P3 stuff, so that they can at least get caught up and see the couple of things you get for beating her. But anyway, that's it for this one. We'll see you in the next one in part, I don't know, 51 I think is the next one. I think this is part 50. Oh, goodbye everyone. This is Scott saying have a good one. We're gonna kick Izanami's ass next time.
I search for your heart, pursue my truth.